Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Tiffany with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Today, we're going to be talking about the impact of COVID-19 on the arts and culture community. Very pleased to have with us on this call Sally Dix, the Executive Director of Bravo Greater Des Moines, and Chris Kramer, the Director of the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs. Thanks for joining us today, ladies. Very pleased to have you. Today, we're going to be talking about not only the impact of COVID-19 on arts, culture, and heritage organizations, but also learn about different resources available to all of us and ways that we can support this very important sector at this difficult time. With that, let's jump right in and start with Sally Dix from Bravo Greater Des Moines.
So the impact to arts and culture organizations is substantial, but I think it's really important to start with the landscape pre-COVID-19. We find that maybe a lot of people don't understand that we really have a rich and robust arts and cultural sector in our community. Bravo is currently funding more than 70 arts, culture, and heritage organizations in Greater Des Moines, and they certainly run the gamut from theater companies to dance troupes to choirs, gardens, zoos, museums, youth programs. There's really a wide range of organizations and experiences available. And they are actually what make, our community such a wonderful place to live and work and play and visit. It's also really critical, though, to understand that beyond being amenities, they are critical economic engines for our region. The most recent economic impact data that we have shows that the nonprofit arts, culture, and heritage organizations generate about $185 million worth of annual economic impact. It's really a huge number, and more than 5,500 jobs, people employed and supported by the cultural sector. So when we talk about impact, we have to understand not only the intrinsic impact that it's going to have, but also the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our community. The arts mean business in Greater Des Moines, and we've got to figure out how to bring that back. So for the time being, impacts, somewhat unique to the art sector are the combined, the model of a nonprofit arts organization is a combination of earned revenue and contributed revenue. And both of those faucets shut off very, very quickly with this pandemic. So the earned revenue are ticket sales and attendance, including school groups. Obviously, with schools being canceled, this is an incredibly busy time of year, the spring, for school field trips. So we lose not only the GA, the general admissions, but also those school visits. We also lose the ancillary revenue of gift shop revenue and merchandise and cafe sales, things that would go along generated with that. Then you have on the other side that contributed revenue piece, the individual donors, the corporate donors, philanthropy, a lot of events canceled or postponed, fundraisers canceled or postponed, and kind of the landscape seems to be that some donors are just waiting to see what happens next before making commitments on future philanthropy. And then specific to the individual artists, there is a huge loss of future revenue, and also to the arts organizations, a loss of future revenue. Commissions not being set up right now for individual artists, or tickets not being purchased for future events and venues as we all kind of wait to see how this shakes down. So there's substantial immediate impact. We've seen, as with every other sector, we've seen furloughs and layoffs and cancellations, fundraising campaigns postponed as people wait and see where immediate needs shake out and how they can fit into the future. We've also seen a lot of annual operating plans and budgets thrown out and restarted as we all try to adjust to the new landscape. I will say, though, if there is a positive side, the arts organizations are in some ways uniquely positioned to respond to this. They can put virtual content out, virtual tours. They are being, as you would expect, creative and resilient in terms of art meetups and opportunities for people to get together and experience arts and culture in a meaningful way, but just maybe in our new digital and virtual world.
Thank you, Sally. This is Mike Caldwell with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. We experienced a small technical difficulty during the recording of this session and lost about 30 seconds of our recording. I would now like to introduce you to Chris Kramer, Director of Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs. And we joined her at the beginning of the very first slide. We only lost just a few moments of her discussion. Thank you.
Small Business Association loans that were available the primary piece that has been really a main factor in helping a lot of our small businesses and nonprofits has been the Paycheck protection program. And so basically that was designed to help maintain the essentials. So keeping people paid so that not everybody had to lay off a lot of different organizations, and keeping folks on the payroll during this time, helping to pay for utilities and rent and so forth. And what was great again is that nonprofits were eligible. The challenge there is that, as we heard yesterday, that in the first 2 weeks, so many people have applied that the amount is now out of funds. So I would just say be patient. I know Congress has been looking at this. If you have any questions or anything, you're more than welcome to contact your members of Congress and their offices, because they are the ones right now that have the ability to add more money to that fund. I've also heard a good suggestion to continue to maintain a relationship with your banker. So go to somebody that you always work with, email them, call them, and make sure that they know that you have questions. You should continue to gather your paperwork and get that ready if you haven't yet applied, so that you can try and be ready if there are additional funds. We did hear that there would be additional funds, but Congress has yet to act on that piece of it. One other thing that I would mention is that within the CARES Act, there were appropriations to the National Endowment for the Arts and National Endowment for the Humanities, each with $75 million. And the way that those funding mechanisms will work is 60% for each of the arts and humanities will go in grants directly from those organizations, and 40% is being basically conveyed out to the states. So next week, we should be able to announce our National Endowment for the Arts organizational grants. So that would be helpful to know. And so far this week, with state funds, we were able to start an Iowa Arts and Culture Emergency Relief Fund grant. And so individual artists and small organizations were the first ones that are kind of coming through our queue. So these are for our smaller nonprofit organizations that have annual operating budgets from $50,000 to $150,000. And so those grants are now open, and then the individual artists. We know this is going to be very competitive, and our goal is we put money in there initially from the state, and we're working to try and get some private dollars that will go in there that we can be the grantor for those. So we will continue to lay out any opportunities that we're conveying and that we're rolling out for the public. And I would say the best way for people to follow along is to follow the Iowa Arts Council newsletters, Iowa Culture. We're sending out weekly updates to everybody. Of course, history and heritage organizations are also included in a lot of these opportunities, but that's where we're trying to get information out to everybody. And then just, throughout, we're just trying to each week send out an update of information, and we need to continue to gather data for this. The Americans for the Arts, who we've partnered with, both Bravo, Greater Des Moines, and the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs and the Iowa Arts Council, we partner a lot with the Americans for the Arts. And so we have been using one of their tools to measure the economic impact. And they're suggesting, even if someone filled it out a month ago and they were maybe a little unsure of what kind of impact it was going to have to their organization, right now they're saying, go ahead and you can go in and update it. It's kind of a live format. And so we have access to that, and we're able to go in and to have a greater understanding of what the needs are. This data is really helpful for us because right now we are working a lot with public funds, but also trying to measure what's going on in the private sector. And this helps us develop a narrative with facts and data that we can share with lawmakers, that we can share with community foundations and so forth as to what the impact is across the state.
Thanks, Chris. And you have shared a lot of resources with us. Thank you for that. And both organizations, I've been so impressed by the proactive communication and ongoing sharing of information and resources. So thank you very much. Really, really appreciate that. The Greater Des Moines Partnership had in mid-March, when this all started to really become real here in our region, we outlined 3 short-term strategies. So keeping businesses in business, keeping people working, and keeping our community healthy. And those 3 strategies, I would say, are absolutely directly in alignment and connected to the work that you are doing. Arts and culture impacts and touches every piece of our community, of business, and of people's lives, and keeping people working. It's also, arts and culture is another reason why our region consistently ranks nationally on many lists, and is known for having a great quality of life and so many amenities and offerings in our community. So as you think about the future and think about the potential of shifting, hopefully soon, into recovery mode, what do you think that looks like, and how do we leverage arts, culture, heritage organizations to help us through this process? Sally, we'll start with you.
It's such an important question, and such a difficult one, because I did not get a crystal ball at the beginning of this whole thing. And so I'm not exactly sure where all the pieces are going to land. And I have talked to my kids about this feels a little bit right now like we're in the eye of the hurricane, right? Like things are not, the wind isn't blowing quite as hard and as fast right now because we're through the immediate response, but we're nowhere close to the end. We've still got the tail end of this storm coming behind us. And it is a little bit of a gift of an opportunity right now to be able to imagine what the future may hold. But the reality of a changed landscape has to be clear. Anyone who thinks that we're going back to normal, whatever that was for you, I suspect that's not going to be the case. I was on a call yesterday. To Chris's point, we are very fortunate that our organizations are very well connected with national affiliate organizations. And I was on a call yesterday with leaders from other cultural organizations similar to Bravo, with the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, and she was speaking about what they're looking at the national level. So we're able to participate regionally, locally, state level. You know, Chris and I have collaborated a lot, and then at the national level. And I want to be clear that the chairman of the NEA said there's never going to be enough money. There's never going to be enough money. So we're going to have to, and this is not necessarily related to COVID, right? There was never enough money for the arts anyway, but particularly now. So we have to be looking at creative solutions, and we have to be planning for the future in new and different ways. So what does that look like? There are some data out there about how different organizations might be affected by this. It's been really interesting, public opinion polling. This is all speculative at this point. Nobody knows how long this is going to last, but it seems like the data are showing right now that intentions to go back and visit cultural entities are strong. People are eager to get out of their houses, and one of the first things they want to do is they want to go back to those places where they felt welcome, and those places where they were able to share experiences with other people, that creative, that inspiration. So people really want to go back, and it looks like about 3 to 6 months before people are probably going to be feeling comfortable again, back to normal, whatever that was to them. But different cultural organizations are going to be affected potentially in different ways, which is really interesting. So organizations where there are lots of freedom of movement, like a botanical garden or a zoo, outdoor historic sites, public parks, places where people can be spread out from one another, are probably going to come back faster than organizations where you're seated very closely next to another person, or an organization that relies on very tactile experiences where I'm touching something and then someone else is touching something. Just public perception on that is different. So there will be different organizations affected in different ways, and we need to think, as we always do, not about a one-size-fits-all solution, or that once this happens, then this will happen. It's going to be a myriad of adjustments that we're going to all have to be making over time. The good news is, again, if there is any good news, it's that now we do have time to devise some strategies as individuals, as organizations, and as a community. How do we shore up those places that may continue to struggle, and how do we support those organizations that may get back online sooner than later? So I think there's a lot of things happening, and a lot of opportunities to be thinking about what comes next, but the impact is unforeseen at this point. The first number, of course, is economic, and the first number we heard was $4 billion. $4 billion worth of economic impact to the art sector nationally. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a big deal.
Thank you, Sally. Chris, would you mind responding also, just thinking about as we're preparing for going into recovery phase?
You bet, Tiffany. And so, I think our team has been working just kind of day and night on trying to address a lot of this, as I mentioned. And I don't think we're quite out of the triage phase yet. I think that we are going to continue to really try and connect people with resources that are available. Excuse me, just dry and allergies. But hold on. I apologize. I'm in a room that is very dry right now. I think maybe if you can go to Sally for a second.
Sally, as we're waiting, would you mind clarifying? We have a couple questions just about the data that you were sharing in regards to the number of folks working in the arts sector. Can you clarify those numbers again?
Yeah, Chris can talk at the state level, and there are resources out there through Americans for the Arts. But locally, I can say that from our last economic impact study, which is a little bit old, there were more than 5,500 people that were supporting the cultural sector here just in Greater Des Moines, about 5,500 people making contributions to that. That's specifically affected by the nonprofit sector. So again, that does not include the individual artists or the for-profit. So we know it's bigger than that. We know it's substantial.
Thanks, Sally. And Chris, are you thumbs up, ready to go?
Yeah, so
Thank
sorry
you.
about that. I've been working from home, and I just came back in the office, and it's just really dry in here. I wasn't used to that. So anyway, as I mentioned, we're still in triage, and above all, we're here to help. And so, if people are trying to navigate what to do, sorry, navigate, I just can't seem to get my voice back. I'm so sorry.
It's okay, Chris. Why don't you take a few extra drinks there? And certainly we understand this. It is allergy season, and the dryness certainly affects us too. So, Sally, I'm wondering, in the meantime, could you talk a little bit about the source when you were talking about the data and information that you've had access to and reviewed regarding folks feeling comfortable? Thank you. So she has shared that in the group chat for those that want to copy paste that and access that information. Sally, I'm also wondering, you mentioned that from an arts culture perspective, that you have noticed that there is great innovation, great creativity, and pivots happening. Are there some examples that you could lift up and share with us of how you are seeing some of those innovative, creative ideas come to life?
Sure. Of course, there are dozens. We could spend a whole call just doing that, but a couple that come to mind immediately are There's a fantastic organization called ArtForce Iowa. I don't know if everyone is familiar with it. They just recently relocated into historic Firehouse #1 downtown, and they serve some of our community's most vulnerable young people. And they provide a meeting location for them and an opportunity to connect, but it's all through their mission is transforming lives through art. And that's in fact what they're doing. But it's challenging when you can't gather, right? So what they've done, and almost immediately what they were able to do were transform to art meetups. So I'm sorry, I don't know if they're daily or if they're weekly, but it's an art meetup, and it's the idea is that you can create art together even when you're not sitting in the same space. And I think that's really special and amazing that they were able to do that and offer that continued connection resource. Again, so often we talk about the arts as the outcome. We talk about it as the experience that we enjoy as an audience, but sometimes the value of the art is the process and is the making and the creating together. You think about that from a symphony on stage or an ensemble cast on producing a play or almost anything. There's a collaborative nature to it, and the opportunity to come together, not just to experience the art, but also to produce it. So ArtForce Iowa is one example. The Des Moines Symphony has been doing virtual concerts. Those are amazing to look at. I know the Des Moines Art Center has launched virtual tours. I might be getting my statistics wrong here, but you should definitely double check all of these details. But I think you can actually see almost every piece in their collection now on their virtual tour. I mean, just above and beyond. There are a number of organizations that serve primarily youth. I have kids at home, and we are eager for activities to do to keep ourselves busy. So there are several organizations that have put together activities, again, art things to do, guided art activities. So there's a lot out there, and we will actually be sharing a list of those resources with the partnership and with the Department of Cultural Affairs within the next couple of days. We just have collected some of that information that people have pivoted to, and we'll look forward to pushing that out through some of our channels so people can stay tuned.
Thanks, Sally, and we certainly look forward to helping share those stories of DSM Strong. We've been working very closely with local media to help get some good news stories out there, so appreciate all you're doing and connecting us to those great stories to share. Chris, can we hop back to you?
Yes, we'll give it a try. I apologize again. That was a little embarrassing. So just to add on to a little bit more there. So as I was mentioning, we're still in the triage phase. And I think that if people are having individual questions and challenges, feel free to reach out to us at the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs, at the Iowa Arts Council, at the State Historical Society, or the film office called Produce Iowa, because we want to hear about where your challenges are. And if there's a way that we can connect you with somebody that we know, inside workforce development or what have you, please reach out to us. Not everybody falls very cleanly in one area or another. Some of our workers fall in between. And so just helping them navigate that's been really a challenge.
I would echo too, a number of partners have come together in Greater Des Moines, the Community Foundation, Bravo, Mid-Iowa Health, the Polk County Housing and Trust, and United Way have come together and are, for the nonprofit sector specifically, are trying to address questions about the CARES Act and about what people might be eligible for. And we actually are working with Dustin Miller, who's an attorney at Nyemaster Good law firm. And he's actually making himself available for like office hours for organizations that aren't quite sure where they fit in. It's not really for the individual. That would be outside the scope of what I think, unfortunately, we'd be able to manage. But if there's anyone who's interested in accessing time with Dustin to have the opportunity to ask some specific questions, this is complicated stuff. It is hard to navigate, and it's changing all the time. So I would echo what Chris says. If Bravo can be a resource, the Department of Cultural Affairs, we would at minimum be happy to make connections if we don't have the answer.
So I would just add to that, as we start emerging from all of this, we're going to have to work together and to really collaborate and to also bring our participants along on this journey. You know, we love our festivals here in Iowa. We love to go and, you know, outdoor concerts, everything else. We're going to have to work together to navigate that. And also for our kids, you know, education is so important, summer camps, museum visits. So we're just really going to have to work together to navigate all of that and to come up with kind of a gradual reintegration of engagement, because we can't just rip the Band-Aid on this one. And we're going to have to work together and to support each other and to have some patience. The other thing is that with the creative sector, these folks are used to really coming up with creative ways to try and solve problems. So in our future planning, for strategic planning for our communities, we want to make sure that our arts and creative folks are at the table, because they think outside of the box and they have a lot of really great solutions. So we want to make sure that they are very much involved. Things are going to look differently, and some organizations are going to really struggle through this. So collaboration is also something that is going to benefit those folks that are going to need to make some transitional moves during this time. And I think that through each one of these types of big moments in our society, you know, we have to adapt and we have to learn how to navigate in a new way. And so the best way to do that is just by collaborating with the business sector, with the private sector, and using a lot of, you know, the typical ways that we have accomplished a lot of projects in our community. And Iowa is known for that. I mean, we love to exchange ideas and really be part of creating something new, but also doing it in our unique Iowa way. So there again, I think we have an opportunity to help organizations who want it and to collaborate with those that are going to help us kind of reach new solutions. Some communities had already started doing this. A few, you know, in the last few years, some communities have started doing culture plans. And that's been really helpful, because when you really take a look at, you know, a lot of our organizations started 50, 60 years ago. And so they have to learn to adapt to the way things are today anyway. Our volunteerism has changed. Our philanthropy has changed. Our participation has changed. So recognizing that as we move forward and having a cultural plan for a community is really going to be a great way for the future for us to identify how we can utilize and participate in our arts and creative culture and allow them to be successful and valued as part of our economic fabric of our community.
Well said, Chris. And along those lines too, not only the resources that you've already pulled together and been sharing so proactively, but also thinking about how each of us can help collaborate and work together as we move forward. I believe you have a slide to share with a list of different ways that folks can participate and collaborate and help this sector specifically. So maybe we can pull that slide up real quickly. And Chris, if you'd be open to talk through it.
You bet. So, you know, we'll make this available, so I'm not going to read everything, but so much of what a lot of our organizations do relies on contributions, memberships, season tickets. Now's the time to look at that. I mean, if you look at what is still in the works, and we're hoping that people will begin to engage soon with a lot of these offerings, but look ahead and support an organization by buying a membership. If a museum or maybe, you know, like the Art Center, other organizations have an opportunity for you to shop online, or to some of the galleries in town or other, you know, similar organizations, now would be a really good time to either buy gift cards or reach out to them, send an email and ask them if they have anything. They can probably spend a little bit more quality time with you in trying to find a unique piece of art for your home or for your office. Now would be a good time for that. If you've already purchased tickets to a live performance and it's been canceled, you can donate that back and know that, you can feel good about the contribution that you're making. You can also donate to various artist relief funds. SURF is one of those, but there are many others that people can make a contribution to. You've also noticed there are a lot of artists that have become a little bit more savvy with selling a lot of their items. So whether it's on a store or a gallery, there might also be sites like Etsy that has a lot more of our creative products that are available. So if you're wanting to do a little shopping online, now would be a really good time to do that. You can also work directly with an artist or a creative, a musician. You can work with somebody trying to create a video. I mean, this is where if you have a conversation with an artist, they can come back and give you a solution or an idea that you would never even think of at all. So now would be a good time to commission something that is personal for your organization or your company, that type of a thing. And we'll continue to get these ideas out. We're collaborating with a lot of folks, and at 3 p.m. every day, you can take an Iowa Culture coffee break. We've had Iowa artists, musicians, museum tours, and so forth. And then, of course, if you sign up for the newsletters to stay connected, the Iowa Cultural Coalition is trying to connect with advocacy pieces, but certainly Bravo, Arts Council, Produce Iowa, and others. Americans for the Arts is another one, just to stay connected with what's going on. So a lot of great ways that you can feel connected to everything that's going on. Sally mentioned a lot of online collections and other resources for families. Here at the State Historical Museum, we made all of our Goldie's Kids Club information available for little ones. So there's a lot of arts and cultural and heritage type of resources available right now for all ages. So, just helping to connect and share. So, us working together, all of our organizations, that's how we're going to really increase our social media presence, which are typical goals that we have anyway, right? And nobody's better than that than you are, Tiffany, to really get people really connected through social media. So now's really a time for us to collaborate and to share and to support each other.
And along those lines of collaboration and partnering, the partnership is partnering with Bravo and Department of Cultural Affairs and a few others, and we'll be rolling out some new virtual programming next week designed to support some specifically local musicians. But there are many ways, and you've collected a great list here, Chris. Thank you for sharing that we can make a difference and help the arts and culture community. Would ask you all to consider as you're doing that, and if you are sharing on social media, to include our DSM Local Challenge hashtag. That allows us, for the partnership perspective, to continue to curate that information and share those good news stories and lift up these great examples of good news, but also of collaboration. So stay tuned for some more exciting good news in relation to supporting some local artists. You have both touched on this a little bit, and we'll dig into a couple of other questions that are listed here through the chat, but I would ask you to consider, how would you respond, or how are you responding to those organizations, arts and culture organizations, that are asking, do we continue fundraising right now? Or what do we do from a perspective of planning for our next fundraising campaign? I know we've been receiving those questions from organizations, many nonprofits, and certainly some arts and culture partners too. What would you advise them to do at this point?
Maybe I'll jump in there. I think this is always challenging because, as we mentioned, local government, they've had hits to their budgets, state government, and we don't really know how that's going to fall out yet, or fall in line yet, I should say, not fall out. But a lot of the corporations too have had some challenges, and the market and so forth. And so I think that, be respectful of what they're going through and just share. So if you can start with having some conversations with some of those donors, and maybe there are, some major donors or just people that you feel like you have a good relationship with, and try and connect with them and talk a little bit about what you're experiencing, but also listen to what it is that they're experiencing. And maybe you can really collaborate there again to find a way that is respectful of the situation. We all have goals to meet, and certainly with fundraising, we have to try and have those fundraising dollars to support our income for our organizations. But now more than ever, be purposeful for what it is that you're raising the money for, and try and articulate that to people. If you just say, we're really hurting, we're trying to keep our doors open, can you give us money? It may not be specific enough to motivate them to do something, but if you can be a little bit more personal in how that organization can be connected with their organizations. Maybe you have a big corporation that you work with on a regular basis that you want to do like live music for their employees someday, and make some kind of a connection with them so that they feel like, boy, during these tough times, we don't want to see this organization really struggle. So to the extent that you can make it really personal and have personal conversations with people and understand what it is they're going through also, that's one of the best ways you can do it. You also have to understand that some folks, they may have been giving you a major gift, and this year they may not be able to do that. Be okay with that. Be understanding and work through this. And I know, I've been doing this for a little while, and I just remember times where some companies had those situations. And I'll tell you, after, when you come out of that, you're stronger together and you have a really better and closer relationship. They're going to be more willing to work with you then when their bottom line grows and they have more funds to work with. So just remember that they've been there with you for a long time, and, try and be just collaborative in the way that you can continue to engage those organizations as participants as much as donors and funders.
And I would just add to what Chris is saying, like, it's a great question, Tiffany, about continuing with fundraising. I think you have to look, it's not dissimilar to any other time when an organization is making decisions about fundraising. You have to think about where it fits in with the priorities of your organization right now, what you think the feasibility of your donors are, and then ultimately, is it still advancing goals and objectives that are relevant? And I posted in the chat, Central Iowa Funders Forum. A lot of people might not know that this group exists, but it's a group of funders in the region that get together, and it's corporate, foundation, private philanthropy, the community foundation, Bravo, social services, arts and culture. We get together once a month and just to stay connected on current issues and topics. That group has come together to provide community circle conversations on Wednesday mornings, and anyone is able to register. It's free. This is actually the topic for the community circle conversation next week. So it was a timely question, Tiffany, is how do you get your message to stand out? For most nonprofits, it's fundraising, but there may be other priority messages. And we'll actually get some data. Jeff White from Flynn Wright is going to share some data about whether people are reading. Is now the right time to be communicating? How much is too much? And ways to get your message to stand out in a good way. Because I think we've all probably also seen some things that did not hit the mark in the last couple of months. So it's a great question, and hopefully we can provide some more context next week. I put the link in the chat for anyone who wants to register.
Thank you. Thank you both. We are getting close to being at time here, but there are a couple of questions in the chat that I will bring up and share with you. Chris, will DCA be supporting or offering grants for budgets that are higher than $150,000?
Great, thank you. That's a good question. So we should be making a grant announcement next week with regard to the $440,000+ available from the National Endowment for the Arts. And our intention for those funds is for organizations of greater than 150,000. So you should see that coming out next week. There's a lot of guidelines that our team is working fast and furiously on getting together. And again, I can't thank them enough for everything they're doing to try and turn this grant program around in no time. I would also just mention that our regular grant round that we offer with our new fiscal year starting July 1, we did move back our application window by a month just to give people a little bit more time. So all of our regular grants, instead of having a May 1st application deadline, that has been moved to June 1st. Just to give people a little bit more time to navigate this uncharted territory, so to speak. So if anybody has any questions about that, let us know, but we'll be posting all of the new grant opportunities next week.
And Chris, any other or additional state funding coming available that you're aware of other than those that you just listed?
Not that I'm aware of at this time. And we're just going to continue to make sure that that our lawmakers know that funding the arts and culture in our next year's budget is really important. So, you know, feel free to share that message with your legislators so that they know that just that you're still very interested.
Thank you. And then we also, this is more of a comment, but perhaps you ladies would have some advice or guidance perspective to share. So one of our attendees here has noted that their organization doesn't qualify for either NEA funded grants and hasn't received an NEA grant in several years. So, and their budget is too large for a state allocated grant. So any advice or guidance to that organization at this time?
Well, the National Endowment for the Arts, basically, as I mentioned, in that 60% that was appropriated to them through the CARES Act, those grants are being awarded to organizations that had previously received a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts in the last 4 years. And so that's why they had to draw the line somewhere, and that's where they drew the line. But the funds that we will be awarding, organizations should be eligible. So if their budget is over 150,000, they should be eligible for the awards that we will be announcing next week.
Thank you. And I don't see any other questions that would we need to address here as a large group. Chris, Sally, could you share just some closing comments and thoughts?
Sure. I just, first of all, I apologize for coughing that whole time and didn't mean to be disruptive. But I will just say that, you know, this has been a really rough time, and it's been really challenging for a lot of people. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in a big building today. I haven't been here for a while, and there aren't other people here. We're all going to have this reentry that is going to be challenging for all of us. But, you know, I think just be patient and be kind to each other and know that we really are here to support each other. And I just would say right now more than ever, we need our artists and our creative folks and those people that are knowledgeable about capturing history and capturing this moment in our history to really step up and to be leaders right now. And we need you right now to help us navigate this. And you can be influential in your communities and in your places where you are active. So just, you know, be patient, and as we emerge, we're going to need you more than ever to help us lead the way.
Yeah, I agree with everything Chris said, and just Tiffany, want to thank you again for the opportunity, and Chris for your leadership and partnership. It's so great to be part of the team of this entire community, this entire region, this entire state with arts at the center. So I think I would say for sure, I'm sorry for the circumstances. It's heartbreaking to hear all the stories of all the loss and what's happening. but I can also tell you I'm extremely hopeful. And there is not a sector I would rather be working with and for at this time than this creative sector that we're working with. I think that, to Tiffany's point at the beginning, you hit it right on the head. There is so much focus right now on essential need and vulnerable populations, and that is as it should be. This is a public health crisis first and foremost. But I do think we need to remember that we all need emotional sustenance as well. And we need psychological connection, particularly at this time when we are all feeling so isolated. And these cultural experiences that our organizations are offering virtually now and then in person when we can, they're going to inspire us to connect in new ways and celebrate community and cultivate hope. And I just, I'm inspired. I'm heartbroken and inspired every single day. And so I just want to thank everyone for taking the time on the call. Again, thank the partnership for lifting up this really important topic, Chris for your leadership, and all of you who are doing the work day to day. I'm hopeful.
Well said. Thank you. Thanks, Sally, and thanks, Chris, for your leadership and for your teams as well. Again, you are doing incredible work that really does truly impact lives of Iowans in many, many ways. Just ask for any of the participants, if you have an idea and a way that you think the partnership can help you, whether it's tell a positive story. We're looking for stories of innovation, creativity, hope, optimism, resilience, or if you have an idea in a way that you think we could support arts and culture or another sector through virtual programming or storytelling, please know that we want those ideas and we want to be a partner with you in finding ways to collaborate and support one another. We truly are better and stronger together. So thanks again, everybody, for your time. And please check back to the partnership website for additional programming opportunities, including one featuring the Des Moines Symphony, Noche, and some other arts and culture partners as well. Thanks again. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Tiffany. Thanks, everybody. Stay well.
Thank you.